Well, welcome back to the show. This summer has been brutal with heat and humidity. And both Becca and I have POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and we have both been really feeling it lately. And we figured probably a lot of you have too. So today we're talking about what really matters when POTS flares hit, how Becca and I notice them, how do we care for ourselves, and how do we shift beliefs around productivity and rest? Because when the flare up hits, there's a whole lot of crap that comes in. So stick around and join us for this conversation. Becca, wow, right?
Wow. I mean, it's been a week, 2 weeks. I don't know how long, it feels like forever, right? But here in the States, we are in summertime, and it is the end of summertime, which is always the hottest part of the summer. And my hot scenario with the heat is terrible. There is no good coming out of hot temperatures for me between having POTS, being in perimenopause, and being on mental health medications that make me sensitive to temperature. Summer is like a no-go for me. And it's actually one of the reasons that I moved so far up north where I live, was to get away from it. So this past week has been a challenge. We had a huge heat wave here in Maine for like, I think 3 days in a row it was. And it just took me off my feet. I don't know if you felt too, but I was like at 50%.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I am in, of course, like the pit of heat and humidity in central Alabama. Gee, thanks, honey. I'm so glad we moved back. We moved to Colorado and we're there for a couple years, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be great for my pods," and it was in a lot of ways because it was less humidity, but I have to say the heat was still just as bad for me in the summer with pods and everything in Colorado as it has been here in central Alabama. But the heat this summer, it's been brutal, and I've felt a few things creep in because you know, for those that follow the show here for a little bit, I was diagnosed with long COVID in January of this year. And I didn't get COVID until the January prior. It was the first time I got it in all that time. I was really lucky. But that actually set off a ton of POTS related symptoms and issues for me that I hadn't had in almost a decade. So this summer has been really hard, really hard.
And it is, and what's crazy, I think, for me too, is that there's part of my brain, I guess it's the same part that for women when they have babies forgets how painful birth was. There's a part of my brain that forgets how much it stinks and how bad a flare is. And, I'll push myself. The longer it's been since a flare, the harder I will push myself because that somehow weird way I forget like all of those things. And I should know, we talk about seasonal living, you and I, and here I should know, here comes summertime. I should start like laying my load, I have to start to lessen my load a little bit because I never know when the heat's going to come. I have no control over that piece of it. I only have control of how I respond to it. But being overloaded in my work, right, and really spread thin, um, makes it worse. It makes me more susceptible to some kind of flare.
I think it happens for me too. And, I started almost a year ago now. So for those of y'all that have been part of the Hormone Harmony series, and I was teaching about those different phases of your cycle and how it shows up with our co-occurring health conditions. I honestly really leaned into that this year. And since January, I have blocked off an entire week and I call it my rest and reset week. And it's when I have my cycle. And we're actually recording this during that and all the perimenopause stuff. Um, but it was really interesting for me because, before we got on and hit record, I was like, "Oh my gosh, my teeth have really been hurting." Like, I was really in a lot of pain last night, and it's something that I've noticed when I'm having a POTS flare, like, the things that normally it's like I may not notice or it's not that big a deal intensify, like, it becomes so much worse. So, normally, I've been noticing, like, my week before my period, during my luteal phase, and then the week of my menstrual cycle, my teeth will get really sensitive, like the nerve endings. And so I noticed that, and then I was panicking when it first happened because I thought, "Oh my gosh, if I go to the dentist," and I got all kinds of dental trauma, so that was kind of a big thing that was super scary. But I started tracking, I'm like, "Oh, wow, no, this happened about the same time last month because I fill in that little tracker thing, and I just write random stuff down because you and I both have said, like, random things will show up.
Right.
And yesterday, of course, I started 3 days early, and it wasn't just like, "Okay, we're gonna give you the little signal," and then all of a sudden, you got a little prep days before everything really starts. I didn't get that. I got a signal yesterday morning, and then it all started yesterday afternoon. And last night, I my ear was hurting, my top of my jaw on the right side of all of my teeth up there hurt, and it's stuff like this is, like, starting to recognize these signs, but it's worse this time because I started having some POTS flare up.
But now that hey, it you're already inflamed and flared up and then this gets layered on top of it, right? It is unreal. It is really like I feel crazy a lot of the time when all of this happens because it's like that. Like, how do you turn to them and be like, my teeth hurt? And I know what it hurts like when you have to go to the dentist. This isn't the same kind of teeth hurt, but my teeth hurt, right? Like, and or I guess my ears get itchy or my feet, the itchy feet. Oh, I don't understand. I don't get it. There's no amounts of moisturizer that would stop the itch on my feet. I don't understand it. And it's really like those are your little signals, your little warning that stuff is happening. So, my itchy feet is always my little signal that I am in like coming toward my period somewhere. Something is happening with my hormones that my feet are itchy, right. And then it'll pass. But I really have to say the layering on of the perimenopause symptoms with the pop is it's almost like I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like someone else takes your body from you for a little bit. That's how I feel, like you're just on for the ride, and that's
Feel like somebody turns the dial up on everything.
that, like, everything, and I don't mean to be angry and mean at people and things like but you just feel trapped in your own skin.
Okay, we're gonna talk about that for a sec. Last week, I am telling you, it had probably been since my late 30s that I had, like, this out of nowhere, super intense, like, rage experience, and it hit me last week. And y'all, it was so bad, I was walking down my driveway, cussing and screaming like a crazy person. Now, I live out in the country and I have a quarter-mile long driveway, so it was kind of a big thing. But I'm walking down and I flailing my hands, and I am just I d I was kinda like the Tasmanian devil, and I'm just like, all the stuff just coming out because I had to get it out, right? And I knew something was not right. And perimenopause, this has just been one of those things, and with all the stuff that's happening, like, I started to notice, like, for me, it's immediately when I start to get really bad, like, vertigo and dizzy. That's, like, comes on first for me usually, and I'll get, like, sort of racy heart, and I'll feel a little short of breath, like, those are some of the ways that I notice it, and I'll get, like, a little dull headache, some of those little things are the signals that, some pot stuff's coming up for me. And that's been creeping in, and then, of course, being in my luteal phase last week, everything intensified, and that's the first time and y'all, I'm 51, so, I mean, it's been a minute since I have had this kind of intense reach, but I knew it was a chemical thing. I knew
And that's the worst part. You can feel that it's a chemical. You're like, this is not, like, who is this? You're unrecognizable to self sometimes.
felt like the dragon lady.
Yeah. Like, and I know people joke about it all the time. You see memes about it online and everything, but like, how we get to a phase where we're like, anybody eating you, right? Like the sound of their chewing, and you're like, I will rip your face off right now. My own chewing. I mean, I annoy my
Love that we do it to ourselves.
I annoy myself. And I think that, a lot of these stuff is happening for me together. But it's almost for me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I could deal with my pop and I was dealing with my nuisance of periods, and they were separate things for me most of my life. So my pasta is acting up, let me do XYZ. This is about my period, let me do XYZ. But now I'm in this weird perimenopause thing that nobody understands, and they are connected together now. And so sometimes what I use for my pots doesn't work for my period, right? And all back and this is a game that needs to find itself some ends. I do not like this, that how tangled they are.
I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole sometimes. Okay. So for me, one of the things that I do to help, like, recognizing the signals and sort of at least allowing a little space when I know, like, for me, the week of my period, this is one where I do, like, my rest and reset. Like, I don't book any big stuff this week usually. And sometimes I do have, like, things event and it happens. But traditionally, I'm, like, pretty rigid around that time because I know there's so much going on right now. I don't know how I'm gonna feel. It's less predictable sometimes.
Yeah.
So I block that off, but then I also use my hormone harmony tracker, and I just kinda track even the most random, like, obscure stuff that I'm something comes up, I just write it down. And I've noticed, like, over a couple of months, I can track stuff. What's something that you do to kinda help recognize your pot symptoms and signal
This,
sooner?
for me, is one of the hardest things that I struggle with the most because I'm somebody I really, really struggle with identifying my body signal. And so what I actually do for my health is take care of myself in a very moderated way all the time. So like I don't ever let down my guard around my pots. I have things that I do every day, in an effort to keep it controlled because I don't always catch the signals. So I'm not somebody who can be kind of reactive to my symptoms. I have to do symptom management ahead, if that makes sense. So I take a lot of supplements. At night I take potassium, I take magnesium, take vitamin D. So I take a lot of supplements to support what I know is going on. I do have electrolyte drinks; those are out there and things like that. And so I drink them. I make sure I drink two of them a day, one of them first thing in the morning. Right. Other thing that I can that I've noticed for me is I'm very weather sensitive. So I can more than anything else, if I look at the weather and I have an idea of what's coming and what days I kind of could say, oh, well, that day I'm not going to be able to do too much. I can already see that I'm going to be impacted in that way. And so I try to not set myself up for failure by ignoring those things. A lot of what I do is prep. And then, of course, I'm like the then the other side of prep is to be the emergency preparedness so I carry children with me around it, right? I carry, make sure I always have electrolyte little packets with me, or I make sure that I'm thinking about salt and do I have it with me, and just making sure I have emergency things if wasn't able to prepare for something.
Oh, yeah, I keep one of the little electrolyte thing water packet things in my purse, but I'm like you, I use a lot of different supplements and stuff. What I have found, and this has been really good, I use something called magic mineral salt. This is magnesium mineral salt. I will send you the link for the
I was about to write it down. Look at us. We're here giving each other advice too.
I will share the link to all the stuff that I use because I shared this in our Hormone Harmony, and I'll also share that download, for everybody that's, like, your hormone harmony with your co-occurring health condition.
Right.
I cover endometriosis, PCOS, all kinds of stuff, POTS, the whole thing. I'm gonna share that because I think this is something that's really important. But, I mean, this stuff has been great, and I just add a little dash of this into my very first cup of my, everyday dose mushroom coffee because I got off caffeine last year, and I was such a coffee addict, but and so I just do that. I kinda like you, just the how do I prepare? How do I do preventative things, and then have that emergency kit for stuff. But I love your checking the weather because, the barometric pressure. That was
I uh, I do, and this is one of the things that I was invalidated about, by the way, my entire life was my sensitivity to the barometric pressure. What do you mean you know it's gonna rain? Do you know how many people I could have spared by telling them to get an umbrella in my life? Like any people. But I have to know because it also impacts my migraine. It'll impact my brain fog, right? Lots of different things, but mostly it limits what I'm capable of. on those days. And in the summertime, those windows are tiny, you know?
What's some ways that, you decide what gets your spoons on flare days?
Okay, so on flare days to me is like selfish day, right? That's my number one. So I am somebody who I love to give my energy to people. I love to give my time to people. I love to collaborate with people. I love to support other people's work, right? But when I go into a flare, those are the days when I call to all of those people and say, I have always been here for you, but I cannot make our meeting, or I need to reschedule our this or whatever. Because I need to take that time, and any energy I do have really has to go to my priorities, which for me are myself and my family. Right. And so that means I have to make sure that my dogs get fed, and I have to make sure that I get fed, that I take care of my hygiene, that my husband has what he needs, that we're all safe and have what we need. Right. Because in that time I don't have all of my everything available to me. And then if I have anything left over, I could think about giving it to other people. But usually on flare days, what I try to do is not, right? I try to, this is my body saying stop. That's how I treat it. It's my body signals because I don't listen to slow down very well, right?
I love that. It's interesting. I was really thinking about this as I've had a couple days lately. And, and it's been one of those things where I'm like, you know, it, I actually didn't even think twice about it. Like I was on reflection that I noticed, oh wow. I had a bunch of stuff the other day on my calendar and I was really just not doing well. It was hard to stand up. It was just I wasn't feeling well. And my brain was just not doing the thing. And I went, what do I need? That's the big question I always ask myself. What do I need? And having alexithymia and really crummy sparkles with I do know, and I just need to listen for a second. Like, you just need to get your butt in bed. You need to have like nothing, watch some fun TV and just stay in the house and be cool. Don't even go outside. I was like, okay. And I just immediately sent out a couple messages and I said, I'm not feeling great today. I would not be the best person to show up for what we're doing. I would like to reschedule. Here's the link. Let's do that. And do you know, in the moment, I did not question myself. I didn't go, oh God, they probably need blah, blah, blah. I didn't think about any of that. I was just like, what do I need? Okay, this is what I need to do. And then reflected back on that. I'm like, holy cow, like that felt so empowering and so freeing because I didn't question, I didn't shame, I didn't blame, I didn't try and force myself to do stuff. And I was like, how much better did I feel the next day? I was like, I felt like a new person.
Well, that's the thing I want us all, I hope that everybody who's listening gets this, right? Because sure, we're talking about POTS. We've also talked about perimenopause and periods, but this could be about anything. When you get to that place of overwhelm where your brain is like, I'm tired and I can't, you deserve that break. You deserve to give that to yourself because that's what you need. If you needed to go pee, you wouldn't tell yourself, no, I have to do this. I'm not going to go pee. Right. So it's like it's understanding that that's part of your body's communication to you is when, right? And what happens when we don't pay attention is we do really crappy work. That's what I want to tell you. When you show up places and you are not your full self, you're a crappy friend, you're a crappy spouse, you're a crappy parent, you're a crappy everything. So you're not even you showed up, but you're not even there and doing what you want you're not the person you want to be when you're there, right? And so we have to remember that we're doing everybody else a favor too by taking that time for ourselves. Because whoever you rescheduled with would rather be with you when you're feeling well than, with you when you can barely, keep your eyes open or stay awake or any of those things. And so I don't know where that trap comes from when it works for everybody, but we all feel like, oh, I shouldn't reschedule. I should push myself through. Right.
Yeah. I think one of the tips that really helped me, because sometimes I was like, I'm not really sure what I need. So what I would do, because I'm like you, like my love language is giving, and I gift a lot of, time, resources, all that kind of stuff. That's my love language. I'm the same. And so I kind of used that. And instead I flipped it when sometimes if I'm like, I don't know what the hell I need. I don't know. Just like if my really good friend Becca came to me and said, this is how she was feeling, what would I tell her? What would I want her to have? You know, that kind of thing. And when I flipped it, then I was immediately like, oh, this, and this.
Right, and the 'cause they come that I don't know, we touch on that space of all the shame that comes, right? That comes up for us as we are processing what's happening to us, because the whole world is we've been fooled into believing, right, this myth about productivity, that if somehow we are not currently producing some kind of materials, we are, just occupying space for things that someone else could be occupying, right? And the minute chronic illness raises its ugly head into your life, you have to reframe how you think about rest and what your beliefs are around rest, right? And whose voice is in your head, right? Like whose repetitive stuff is in there because we've talked about it before, that fear of being caught resting like that, because that comes up for this all the time. And yet if we don't rest, we don't get better. So you have no choice. And if you're truly chronically ill, if you don't rest, your illness will make sure that you rest one way or another. And so it's about, can I choose when to rest, or do I let my chronic illness choose when I rest?
It's, your health is your wealth, right? And I didn't even plan this, but y'all, I've got on the perfect t-shirt for today. My t-shirt says hustle at the top and has a line through it. And underneath it, real big, it has a line.
Yep.
That is it. And I think that's one of the things, and this is where I really struggled because I had that productivity and performance equated to my lovability and my worthiness, my value, right? And when I was complete like, all of my chronic conditions, it was like the perfect storm, and my entire body shut down, and I was bedridden, and I couldn't even lift my hands. I had 2 little kids at home, and, my husband was overseas, and this was just, like, the absolute worst. And there was this part of me, and I remember it was about 2 full years, honestly, of just this horrible internal viciousness, beating myself up every day because I felt like my body had betrayed.
Yeah.
It had quit. It was revolting against me. And when I flipped that perspective, thanks to some really beautiful people in my life who said, feel like there might be a different way to look at this. This isn't your body betraying you. Perhaps, what if this is your body telling you what you need, but you just don't know how to listen yet?
And that is how we won't, because we're so busy listening to whatever the other voices out there are telling us what we're supposed to do, what we should do, all of these things, right? But this is wrapped, I think, for me too, around a lot of our beliefs around aging. Women age Women and aging, right? Gosh forbid that we should need more rest because we're getting older, right? Just for that, right? Or that we've if you wanna put it in those terms, we've earned rest by our years on this planet, right? However we wanna talk about it, right? But aging is a component of this. You cannot, even if you were a quote unquote productive person in your 20s, that looks different in your 40s. You don't have the same capacity. And that's the job. I think that's the lesson in chronic illness for me is, I don't get to decide the speed of things. Sometimes I have to rest. Sometimes my body has to force me. But I also spent, and I don't know if this is for you, I spent a lot of years ignoring my meat suit. Oh, me, and I wanted nothing to do with it. It was so annoying to me, right? That I feel like this is my lesson in no, you have to pay attention to that. You don't get a item, like you don't get to just wear it like a suit, carrying your brain around. You have to take care of it.
This been laughs because so often I'll say, I just want to take my brain out and put it somewhere else.
Hey, that I feel very much like I am my brain, and like it's just inside this meat suit. But I could take it and put it in another meat suit, and I still feel like me. I don't, you know what I mean? Like my brain is. genuinely who I feel that I am. That's where I feel I exist. And this is just like the I don't know, the car that I'm in. This had the vehicle of for my brain.
So interesting thing. I love that we're talking about this. So I had this very unusual dream the other night, and I woke up, early in the morning when you get in that dream state, and I was sort of in that lucid dreaming state where I was like conscious, but also still dreaming. And this very clear image came, and I didn't want to forget it because I've been like, the meat suit, the skin bag, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like the right. Which was so beautiful. You're going to love it. It was the Earth swing. This vessel is our Earth swing. Like, I even saw a globe on a swing, like, moving back and forth, and it is spinning around. You know how when you're little and you get in the swing, and you spin yourself around, and you go in every direction, you go high or low, and I was like, "Yeah, actually, that's pretty accurate." So, I was like, "It's my Earth swing."
Oh, I like this. I like, but that I genuinely, I know, I don't know if you're out there, neurotypical people listening. Do you feel like you're attached, like it's all one package? Or do you, right? Because I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like my brain was placed into this package and the package is optional to me.
You you're like, "I feel like could be that brain in a jar, you just moved here."
So I'd be fine. I wouldn't have to deal with pops. It would all be great.
I mean, honestly, I think if I could do that, I always wanna have, like, one of those bionic bodies, right? Yeah. But, like, how do we reframe this, especially when we're in a POTS flare? Because if it's not just a couple of days, if you're in a flare that's lasting for a long time, now you and I both had those, there's a lot of crud that comes up because you can navigate the whole belief system and the shame stuff and give yourself some rest for a short time, but there's this point of time where we hit it, and all of a sudden, it's, like, no longer acceptable.
Yeah. Well, that is, I think for me, is about understanding your new normal, which is a terrible way to say it because I hate the word normal. But when you have chronic illness, when you enter perimenopause, all of the right, you're adjusting to a new normal. So your standards, what you were holding to yourself to before, have to change. And if you don't change them, now you're holding yourself to old standards that you can't possibly attain anymore. And that's, I think, our grave mistake. We have to, you might have been, it's again, you might have been one thing in your 20s, but now you're in your 40s and you have to kind of reframe the whole thing and what your capacity is, what you want to be doing, how much of that. So when you're, I think, especially when you're in an extended flare, it's easy to land in depression. What is my purpose? Am I even bothering? Right? I don't even need, waste. I used to say I'm just a waste of oxygen. I'm just taking up somebody else's air, right? Um, and things like that. And it's easy to go into that. But again, that's attached to that productivity thing, right? You're only resting for too long if you feel like you should be doing something else or be somewhere else, right? And so what I say to people is you have to create a new standard, a new set of normal. And if that means you nap every day and that's your new normal, then you nap every day and that is your new normal. And it's not about a standard, you know?
These standards and expectations, oh, man, they can be so heavy. One of the things I love, and I know that you have this experience too in your groups, and it's like the genius, the wisdom that comes from our collective conversations. And the other day in our Alignment Sundays group, we were talking about some hard stuff. And one of our members shared a phrase that they had heard recently. And I was like, that's so good. And she said, if they could, they would.
Mm.
Like, oh my gosh, like sometimes if somebody's hurt your feelings or maybe they did something, or, you know, I was thinking about this from a POTS flare. It's like the days that I need to rest, if I could do something, I would. But today I can't. And that's okay.
Like pushing yourself isn't the norm. That shouldn't be acceptable behavior, pushing yourself past your limits. And yet we're all asked really from a young age to push ourselves past. I really, I feel like it starts press in school. Like we send kids to school really because we need some place to send them while their parents work, right? I'm asking kids to sit for that many hours, right? And it's beyond their capacity. So we get used to that,
that way.
right? I mean, it's and so we have to, pushing through is something we're told and taught to do so early on. And that's, I think, the piece that we have to change for ourselves, right? That's not fair. We have limits because we're human, and that's okay.
So what's something right now that you are in the process of unlearning around your beliefs or anything?
I think, I am a natural helper person, and I am not someone who accepts help well. So, like, I give help, fantastic. I will help everyone, but I am not an asker of help. Like, I still am working around the shame of needing help and needing support. Um, I think probably because I've always needed support for weird things that people judge, like the things I ask for support around. And probably even until this day, if I told people some of the things I need support around, they would really judge around it. So really, that's something I'm still working on and something that I need to be humble about because when I am in a flare, I really need help. I can't get up a million times. I have to make sure I'm hydrating. I have to, right? There are things that I have to do in a flare to get out of the flare. And so I do need help and support for those things. So that's something that me and my little ego need to work on about not asking for help for ourselves. What about you?
I am in the place of practicing that more frequently because I've gotten to a place of uncomfortable and knowing that I can ask. I'm good with that part, but I don't practice actually asking because I'm like, who do I ask? So part of sort of what I'm unlearning and part of this process for me has been who do I identify? So I just kind of started preemptively working on a list around this, I don't know, a couple months ago. And it's like, well, if I need this kind of help, who would be the person I would want to ask?
Yeah.
And so that way, when I do need it, I've already got something to go back to. But for me, it's kind of like, okay, pause for a minute. What do you need? What, who's person that you can ask for this? And then actually go ask them. Not just a theory, Carole Jean, and
Right. This is a great person, but you can't get frozen in the ask, right? You have to make sure and there is around that whole piece, right? We have work to do, all of us, because I think many people are willing to get help, but so few people are willing to ask. We have trained ourselves to believe it's a weakness to need assistance, right? And that we shouldn't, and layered, we shouldn't show our weakness to anybody. So we shouldn't ask for help. Someone shouldn't know. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think that's a terrible habit to be in. So I am desperately working on asking.
okay, so collectively as a community here together in things that really matter, Becca and I are not going to be the cheese standing alone here. We know we're not. Let's do this together. Let's find a way that we can support one another in this. And for me, I think sometimes, oh my gosh, when we talk about how do we advocate for ourselves, how do we have connection with other people, especially when it comes to like when we're in a flare. So Becca, how do you explain POTS to other people who don't have it or aren't familiar with it? When you're in a flare and you need some help and they're like, what the heck do you need me to do that for? You did it 2 days ago. Right?
Happens. I have noticed that if I truly am in a flare and I actually need something, that I do my darndest not to explain a damn thing. That is actually because when I am in a flare, I need something, and it is not my responsibility to educate you in that moment, right? So I'll happily educate you around pots. I will share resources, right? But when I'm in a flare, that is not my time to educate. That's when I have to take care of self. But at the same time, I also need community more than anything else. So when I'm in a flare, there is nothing that I love more than going into my POTS Facebook book group and reading everybody's silly memes about all the things you deal with when you're chronically ill because it takes away that isolation. Here you are stuck in bed, all of these things. But then you see there's other people stuck in bed. They're stuck a bed far away from you, but they are also having these thoughts or these conversations or these thinkings. And that always makes me laugh, and it always makes me remember I'm not alone in it and that I'm not crazy. Other people are having these symptoms, and all of those things. And a lot of the time, the solutions for many of my problems find them in my mind community when I see other people posting, right? You'll see, oh, someone found this new couple of struck, this thing or this way to calculate or this way to track. And then you can find options for yourself. And you know that there's somebody else out there who's thinking about it as much as you are. And so all that stuff. And so to me, that's the key for me is reminding myself that I'm not alone because when I start to feel alone and isolated, I go into that depression mode where why am I here? Why am I doing all the things I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons that I I'm such a huge advocate and champion of the Invisible Disabilities Organization, and I have joined their campaign for the last 2 years, and it's important because I think we can't do these things sometimes when we're in a flare. We just don't have the energy, and that's not where our capacity needs to go. And there's plenty of other times, like when you are feeling well, those are great times to advocate in a way that works for you. Like my friend Vex Canner, I love them so much. They were like, there are times I just don't feel safe. There's times I just don't have the energy, the brain width, the capacity, but I can wear a t-shirt.
Yep.
Just something that simple or just, a general, like, just image post and leave it at that. And you gotta remember, we are always because so few people really know about, like, POTS and MCAS and Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobility, all of the co-occurring conditions that show up in our lives, people just, on average, aren't very well educated in our human bodies to begin with. They don't get taught these things in school. And because we are struggling with them, we become the experts on this. I mean, we do the deep dives, we do the research, all this stuff, and we're always gonna know. I mean, I see this in our POTS groups all the time that we're in. It's like, oh my gosh, I had to educate my doctor. How many times did we go in and we are educating our medical professionals on how to treat us right? And it's exhausting. And so really that's something I love that you shared that, Becca. We have to really think about it's not my job to educate you, but it is my job to let you know what the boundaries are and what I need and what I expect.
Right. Like I think there's a time and place, but it happened to me also when I got my autism diagnosis. Right. There was this sudden expectation that then I was an expert in autism and I had all the answers around everything for autism, right? Just because I had it. And it's not my job as an autistic person to educate. Have I now chosen it as my job? Yeah. But it is not my inherent obligation as an autistic person to educate. And so I am fascinated by the amount of people who ask questions to an autistic person when they're in meltdown. There's the most understanding, at least whatever, and that's how I feel when I'm in a flare and someone asks, "What do I mean by that?" Because I don't feel good and I don't have the patience, and I'm like just trying to take care of myself. And so I do remind myself, I don't have to. I just have to tell you what I need. And if you're not able to help me with what I need, then I need to move on because I have to take care of myself right now. And there's a time and a place when if I'm feeling well, I would gladly speak an hour and a half on POTS and what it is and how it impacts me and all of those things. And so we need to remember that we're allowed to put that boundary up. Just because I have the information doesn't mean you deserve to get it right now. I need, er, right. Because Google it. Right. Exactly.
I mean, geez. And and I think that one of the things that makes a big difference, like you said, we do tend to isolate when we're not feeling well because it takes energy, it takes that capacity to be with other people. And so that's exhausting. And sometimes it's even my sensory system and all this stuff happening during a flare up is just like, no, I can't be around other people. It's just too hot.
See, like, kick.
No, and if I'm in my luteal phase, it's for your safety, not mine.
It's really, you know yourself. And so we have to call those limits, and it's when you have thoughts. Like, if I had to go somewhere where I had to wear specific clothes when I'm in a POTS flare, well, no. No, no. Because, no, I need, like, lip I need be I need to not be in anything that's weird feeling, nothing too tight, right? It's a situation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And just like the days where the the blood and everything isn't pooling in my legs and my extremities, and I can't quite you and I have to wrestle myself into those dang Ted hose. Y'all, I live in Central Alabama in the 11th circle of heat, hell, and humidity, and I am wrestling myself, my little fluffy body, into these dang Ted hose, and it is just like, oh my gosh. I actually saw in our POTS Facebook, one of the POTS Facebook groups, somebody's talking about 2 different designs for something you put the Ted hose on and then slide it up so you're not, like, wrestling and choking yourself to death. Because I feel like I'm suffocating when I put those things on. Because I have, like, constriction stuff. It's always like, "Okay, maybe I'll try that," you know? And there's just things you can get in community that you can't get anywhere else, and I think it's also one of the places where when I felt really invalidated, especially by medical appointments and things like that, I needed community. I needed to know other people saw me, like, I wasn't experiencing, like, this crazy thing, and somebody looks at me, like, at the doctor's office, like, I got a third eye or something.
Yeah. When not there is nothing that feels better than saying you have a weird symptom like your teeth hurt, typing it into your Facebook group and having everybody go, "Yes, yes," right? Because 'Cause you're like, "Please, you understand," right? Like, thank goodness, and that peace is not something that anything you can get anywhere than community. All of those people have stepped in the shoes, and so that's why it feels good. It feels like somebody caught you, right? It feels like you get caught by everything, and so that to me is for me, one of the things that I rely on the most when I'm having really hardcore mental health days around either my flares or my autism, which yes, I still have them, around my autism, s- the pluck check in. I know Facebook is like an old person thing now, but we have some really old, long standing groups on there from, in our community. And when I'm having a bad day, I go there because I know someone else was in a post that I'm feeling that day. And I can be like, yeah, me too, you know?
And I think just to kind of bring this conversation that I hope has been of great service to you for listening. If you have been experiencing some POTS flares this summer, if you have had any of the stuff I cannot shared and maybe some different things, we want to know about those too. But we also want to talk about like what does success look like in a flare? Because we can really kind of get caught on all the stuff that's not going well, but how do we start to be gentle with ourselves to go, you know what? That was a micro win. Or I just gave myself permission to rest. And that was a huge success.
Right. I mean, we have to package those things up and look at them properly, right? A flare is a flare. It's going to do its thing and it's going to roll through its cycle and then at some point it will end. Are there things we can do to support the ending of that? Yes. Right? They're stupid. You can remember to hydrate. You can remember to put your feet up, right? You can remember to lay down when it's possible. Don't do too much exertion, right? We can do all of those things. But to me, it's the pausing and awareness. Yes, I am in flare. We are acknowledging I am in flare, right? That to me is a packaged win. Every time I say to myself, I'm not crazy. I don't feel good. I am in a flare and I acknowledge it and then say, do I need to hydrate? Do I need electrolytes? Should I have a pickle? What could I do for myself? That's a win to me because I've acknowledged its existence, right? Which means it's not this all powerful thing hanging above me anymore. You're real, you're happening. And just like if I had a headache, what could I do to make it better? And that to me is a win, right? If I can get through a flare without it just without being depressed at all, I consider that an even bigger win.
Oh my gosh, yes. One of the things for me that has been such a huge way to reframe and to really begin to look at and really feel successful even in a flare, it's been to simply acknowledge that the reason that I have a particular symptom or condition isn't because I'm being punished, isn't because I'm a bad person, isn't because I did something wrong. It's just part of my journey. And it's the way the symptoms flare up or just sometimes how my body is responding to an environmental thing. It can something that's totally out of my control. It isn't because I didn't do something or I did something wrong. Because I would be pretty hard on myself thinking, "I could have prevented this. I could have had more water. I could have done this, somehow." And that can be really hard.
Yes. Like I could have, or should have done more or something, but it's not. We shouldn't wrap it like punishment. You're right. It's very easy for us to take it as like a personal punishment. But no, I think there's lessons in it for us. I think those of us who were gifted our chronic illness, right? We were given it for a reason. There's something in it for us. There's a lesson to learn. And it might just be that we're the people that have to show the world that we're all going too fast and that we need to slow down.
Definitely. You and I have something pretty special coming up to help everybody intentionally take that choice to slow down, to really tap into yourself. And Becca and I are really excited. We are putting together a 3-part workshop series, The Journey of Self Renewal. And our first workshop's going to be coming up at the end of September, and it's going to be the fresh start, rewrite the story of you. Becca, tell me, I mean, you and I were planning this and talking about the other day. What are we excited more?
We are going to tackle the evil monster of negative self talk. That is what we are going to do. We're going to tackle that monster, talk about how we reprogram that and how we take control of that situation so that the things in our life that we're doing are choices, not stuff that we feel pushed to do or are habitually doing, which is even worse.
Well, it totally is. I'm so excited about this. We're going to make sure that y'all have all the information that you need coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll have that out on both of our social media channels and we'll send it out to our email list. If you're not yet following the show, hit the follow button. Make sure you do the notifications so you don't miss anything that we have coming up because Becca and I are really excited about this 3-part workshop series to help you rewrite the story of you, to obliterate that mean negative little voice that's just beating you up inside that really has no business being there.
Get out. We're going to teach you how to do it.
We are. We're going to do it. Take care. Y'all have a fabulous month, and we'll see you next month here on Things That Really Matter. Bye bye.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Be on chronic.